Response to the second question on Quan number 20 of mine, I want some more detail on. In addition to providing an update on the number of bales traded on WoolQ since October 2020, I want to put the original question to you again, and someone else might need to answer it, but maybe you can. The 1920 annual operating plan states an operating target of 2% of all Australian wool to be traded via WoolQ marketing tool. Can you please explain why only 939 bales were traded on WoolQ market auction in the financial year, which is less than 1% of total bales sold, particularly given 32,437 bales were created on the platform?
John, I might hand that over to you. Would you like to answer that?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. The target, when the WoolQ was formed, that was post the Wool Exchange Portal Working Group, which was a group that was impanelled to firstly determine whether the WoolQ platform was feasible and something they wanted to proceed with. Within that group, there was representation from wool brokers who sold in excess of 50% of the Australian wool clip. There was also a strong representation of exporters, growers, testing authority, the Australian Wool Exchange, and following that review and that feasibility study, there was unanimous support for the development and the go-ahead of.
Yeah, sorry, I know we're under time pressure. I do appreciate the history of WoolQ being set up. My question remains, why were 900 odd bales sold out on it out of 32,000? Sure.
Well, following that, there was a degree of optimism, and that's where we got to that 2% within.
So we based the 2% on, to quote you, a degree of optimism. What sort of data was under it, other than your optimism?
Well, within the working group, as I mentioned, there were a significant number of brokers who were represented, and we made some assessments about how we would get to that.
Okay, so when you say made some assessment, did Jack, Bill and Pete reckon we could get about 2%, or did we have some data?
We would have had some data. I'd have to go back and I can take that question on notice for you.
Yeah, because what you've given me in my question on notice answer isn't enough. So how much has been spent on WoolQ to date?
In total, 6.3 million over 5 years. That includes also the reviews that took place prior to the building of that platform.
So what is the return on investment from WoolQ to date in dollar terms?
We haven't derived a revenue stream from the platform at this point, because we are yet to start charging for the WoolQ market service, because we haven't had the volumes to make that.
Because people don't see it as valuable.
Our experience is that people do see it as valuable, and we've had very positive feedback with the brokers and the exporters and the growers we've worked with. The challenge is getting people to look at it, not just in terms of the value proposition that's delivered by the selling proposition, but if you look at the entire platform and what it can deliver in terms of the suite of tools, including the Ready Reckoner price assessment tool, the industry network, and also as we start to get overseas brands and consumers attracting to that site, we believe that once the volume comes, we need to sell the entire value proposition, which has been difficult, particularly last year when we weren't able to do face-to-face meetings, which is where we get the real traction.
And that's when you travel overseas to talk to buyers?
No, I'm more specifically referring to getting traction within Australia in terms of getting growers to
getting the bales.
Getting the bales, yeah.
So you don't have a problem with people purchasing the other end? I thought that's what you just said.
Well, the issue we have is we don't have enough volume. We've had 13 wool auctions, online auctions there, and we have to this point, but the volumes have been limited.
So $6.3 million over 5 years. At what point do you pull up stumps on this?
I think we need to, now that we're free to actually work with wool growers more closely and get volume there, we still think that 2% is of the traded volume, in fact,
But
higher than that.
When?
I'd like to think that the original target was set for the to get 2% by the end of July 2022. I still think we can work towards that.
So what is it at right now? Just under 1.
Yes.
So you're going to double it in a year. Double it in a year. It's very ambitious.
It is.
And your track record would suggest that it ain't going to happen. Was that a nod?
No, it was not a nod. It was just an acknowledgement of your point that it is a challenge and it is optimistic. But I think we are now in a situation where we can get out and get volume on that platform because most the export.
What's changed?
Well, we can actually get out to shearing sheds and get growers to actually start using the
That's only
e-Express.
COVID 2020. We've had this for 5 years.
Well, we've only had the selling platforms. We had our first selling platform in April. I think we started trialling it last year in April. So the selling mechanism has really only been through a pilot stage until now. So we now have the functionality well and truly working well, and we've had the feedback we've had from the exporters who have been using it has been positive.
So if you're having trouble getting Australians to use the platform, is WoolQ what Australian buyers and sellers actually want?
I think, Senator, can I butt in and say something?
Well, I was just asking, and then I'm very happy for you
Okay.
to follow on.
Well, following, again, I don't want to give you a history lesson, but...
No, don't give me a history lesson. I know there was a lot of optimism by brokers about this platform that has proved to be unfounded. And now we've got a lot of optimism that we're going to double it in a year.
WoolQ presents an opportunity for the Australian wool industry to showcase themselves and tell the story. The narrative that has changed in the sense that we've always had a good story to tell. We've tried to push that up the supply chain to the overseas brands and consumers. But previously, we've been in a world of which has been dominated by synthetic fibres and price points. We're now in a situation where the world is interested in the wool grower's story. WoolQ provides an opportunity for growers to profile themselves and for brands and consumers to see their stories. So
we're selling bales of wool?
Selling
or
bales
are
of wool
we
is
telling stories?
We're doing both.
Right, that is unable to have been done thus far. I just think it's incredible that you can throw so much money at something that isn't actually delivering for you. But I will be asking for updates at every single estimates, and I hope in 12 months' time you're sitting here telling me that you were right and I was wrong. But I wouldn't put a bottle of wine on it. Did you have anything to add?
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.